So I'm going to try to walk through some of the code. What I was going to do here, I'll do the test real quick just to okay, so what I'm going to do is just run the whip. I will pull it down and build it sometime, but that's not important right now. But this is just to run where I'm just going to go through and I'm going to go through what the code is behind driving this is. So then that's a simple check there. Okay, so, oops. Okay, so this is one thing that I do get every once in a while. And I think this is the React DOM settling down. I don't know, either that or it's a bug in Selenium. And they keep... basically, the Selenium driver or something can't talk to the session it's connected to. A lot of times, if you just rerun it, that's why I think it is a timing issue. But all that stuff is why it's the stuff can be fragile. And I'm not see if it does better this time. Yeah. I'll just do it one more time to check out as I start to pull up the feature file. I'm going to try to source. So, assuming this goes okay, and well, you can see what, oh, shoot. Why isn't it? Huh. Oh, well. So, I'll just go if you do the the yarn install install, all it does is it basically pulls in, if you're not familiar with Node, it pulls in all the nodes, all the modules it's trying to do. But the way it works is, well, sorry, the packet JSON is really what the things are issue. What I'm doing now is I'm running the whip, which is this is the WebDriver IO, which is a package, in Node here. And I won't dig that in. I'll assume you can figure that out. But anyway, the spec it's going to go after just that spec. So we go to that spec and features, drp features. Oh, source. Yeah, that's right. Source features. Now that I'll explain a little bit of this structure. Features is the Gherkin style language stuff. Page objects is what I'd like to do with each kind of UI element, which in our case here, right now there's this sidebar, there's this top portal. This top portal thing seems to be what you're coordinating with all the upper, well, what do they call it? That seems to be your user, bar, so to speak. And then the rest of this stuff you're getting from back end, and this is from this thing you're getting from all back ends or whatever. So that's probably tied to the rack and portal, but this is all user based stuff. And then this is per endpoint, I believe, which is why you have that selector. And then this is just the the rendering of the API call, which is when I started looking at how you guys were doing. Let's see if I have that up. I don't have that up. Well, anyway, the Golang stuff, you basically have different tests for the different UI frameworks. So I figure you have a lot of that already tied in. So that's, and this structure is kind of what I was trying to get. This is, the natural language structure that I was talking about. And this is not clean for sure right now. And I want that, what was I doing? DRP, right? DRP UI fixture. So, and a lot of the comments outs are me, poking around with trying to find something that works with the React stuff, and then hacking the sub modules. But conceptually, is that the Gherkin stuff is pretty trivial. It's all it's doing is setting up, the scenario is basically a new testing session, so it clears the browser out, and then given, and these are the instructional stuff. Given is, okay, set up the test, and is basically, means anything, but it's just a concatenation of the last one is usually, but it doesn't have any context in itself. So basically all these other ones have, are redirected to and. The when is usually an action, and if we look into here, if you look into the steps, which is what the features is tied into the steps. The steps are these are the lookups for the given, when, and then, and that's basically tied to that. But then all it is a regular expression that's trying to decipher this. So let's just go into like this one, because it running a DRP. Yeah, so I created a special one because I wanted to, basically the back end to be identified. And this is, I'm not doing this currently, but this is what typically people do. This regular expression matching, which it should be in the given, and we go into the given, and we go the I'll split window here, so let's stretch things out and pull up the feature again. Oh, my fan is starting to make noise. It's probably getting warm. Let's see, DRX UI features. Okay. So, see, I am running the DRP provision endpoint. Now, what I did in the given statements is I started to, a tag for, just like the login page is for a specific page object, and that's how I was going to tie the page object stuff in there. But then the DOS, here it is, the regular expression. So I'm passing two variables, site and URL, and whatever the site and URL is in quotes. And this is a problem. Oh no, this was not okay. So I didn't create a new one. What I was doing, I had intentions to endpoint. Oh wait, running the DRP endpoint with URL. Okay, with URL. Okay. So I'm actually using the common one, and my intention was to change that, and then to also initiate the back-end build to, so basically that given step would initiate the endpoint build, locally, so that it had, the target before it, went into the test. But that's that's not a good example to debug, but, and we'll get one to the rack in, that's rack in specific here. I hear the first one here, but so these are really normal, testing calls, for normal, DOM stuff. When the title's rack in, and title don't have it because it's in the header, so they usually don't do interactive stuff with that. These for sure is when so now you're into the modal thing, and I'll try to, let's go through the code first. And what I was going to do is I'll also go through how I find them and I figure out this stuff. But So the React.js is what I was having a problem with. I couldn't use a normal, normal testing selector because of the React stuff. And so what I did is I just threw React in here, and then so this is like a when statement, so it's usually an action. In all this stuff, you can, it's just pattern. It isn't, very. You can mess it up pretty easily, or I mean, basically you can overwrite it. When, okay. And I was trying to find. That's what I don't like about. Okay, it made my thing go away, which means I have to basically to keep it up here. I put a space in here somewhere, just so it thinks I'm editing it. Get rid of that given. But I want to open the when. There, flip to the when. Okay, so when I set React.js, okay, I add or set to React.js input field. So then this is where, so what I did is I cloned this input field into a new object, and then I called the object here. So set input React and field, set input React field from the same type, but it's just a clone. This is where, if you get into this, cleaning this up will be, let's see, input. Fill action. So action source support action and rack in. So what I was trying to do is always put racking in front of mods I had to make. And here if you'll see that what I did was I was just pulling it in. The problem is these elements, there's multiple unique elements, so these selectors come back with an array instead of the set of the element. And it's an artifact of how React builds in the DOM. It has that core thing that it builds from, so it really only builds things as it needs it, which is a great thing, except that then the accessors don't have anything. So it is the template stylers, the CSS template stylers will have the same problem, because, and that's why I like this technique for testing, is it uses the WebDriver IO, which is the accessibility port of the browser, which doesn't go away, and it's supported by W3. I mean, it's a part of the spec. So anyway, so instead of just grabbing that element, what I had to do is, and this is me figuring out how to get a hold of that element, because I couldn't remember, and my debugging foo of JavaScript is not great. But anyway, what it ends up being, and I'll show you here in a little bit in the BOM, is that you have to pick off the part of that array, because the React actually generates that dynamically, in the interact, and that's actually in what I make it the DOM delays, because sometimes I think it's got to say, and I know that there's formal ways to wait for the DOM to settle down before you get that query. But anyway, so again, instead of issuing this command, which is the normal way that these testing framework stuff works, I basically did it this way, which does work. And well, let's go on with well, here, the easiest thing to show now is to look at it in the DOM. So here, I'll put a, well, let's put this right here. Browser. Oops, I can't do it there. That's not the debug. Oh, I know. And I pause. Well, heck. Well, here we'll do it both. I pause for a minute. So it should pause. Oh, how come it didn't pause? Oh, I misspelled. Well, oh man, I hate. They changed it. Well, yeah, they're getting fancier with. I'd like Visual Studio Code for, you know, and then they've gotten fancier with their selectors and or with their, you know, assistants. Well, I might have to quit this just because the screencast on my computer may be getting tired. Okay, it did pause. So now if we go in here, let's inspect the DOM on this. I usually break this out. I forget how to break it out. There it is. Oh, come on. Oh, see, and that's the problem I don't like on that. Is that the timeouts are, unless I throw it into another debug mode, it's always going to time out the test. See, it basically it timed out and decided to go on. So anything takes over 20 seconds, it just, you know, airs out. Anyway, let's get back to HTTP. I think this will. Ah, shoot! I forgot how to get. Ah, shoot! I know there's a way to get out of the UX because I've done it before. Well, here, I know what I'll do. I'll do it in test. I don't think it knows it. Maybe it does. Oh, yeah, heck, it should do this. Well, what, 80, 92? Ah, shoot. Oh. There we go. Will it? Oh, good. So there. And this is what I try to figure out, because a lot of times that auto generates and goes through or whatever. But anyway, now if we inspect, and you guys can tell me how you. Well, there's one thing is, yeah. I just assume that you're looking at this, but there's, you know, some stuff. Anyway, and there's the selector, but what I do is you go. So if I were to use the normal selector, let's say, well, let's look at input. See how it gets this. Well, there's two inputs, but let's even do one better. So, but it's the the function init thing that it's picking up, and that's the React. I get whoever's doing the React stuff is, or Isaac, is that it? Probably knows what this is, but and there's a way that you can get rid of it, and I'll point you to a link on that. But here I want to do, okay, let's see if I can remember my CSS at, is it at, name equals, oh shoot, I forgot, name equals, well, let's try it, password, well heck, I've got the selector in, yeah, there I've gotten one. Okay, so now if I pick off that one of the arrays, then I'm getting to what I normally think is there. So because I think it, and like I said, I think this is React, the function, and it and all that stuff, and it's just an unexpected, way. Well, that's because the testing stuff is older. But anyway, so that's what I had to modify, because all the code for those auto tester things just kind of do a selector like this, and it doesn't have. I went on to the commit, whatever, and there's people in the community that are trying, know about this or whatever. And I understand that, the React guys are actually don't want to do testing at this level, but this is where there's a huge split, I think, that in the community is well, why are you doing a UX if you're not going to test what the browser renders? Of course, that's very breakable, and I don't even want to get into the fight. If you don't want that fight, or if you don't want to deal with that fight, then you just forget all this. But anyway, if I were, this is where now I'm getting to, but anyway, this is me getting lost. So I showed you how to find it, and then let's go back to the code. And those are the hacks I had to do with it. And what I would like to do is that, I'll see if I can find a feature that's cleaner. I think the login started to get cleaner. Login feature. Yeah, I'm trying to get this to, the feature file should be at a level where it looks like a user trying to use it. And it's just that if the thing that's protecting, the coders is, oh, you've got to, say these things right, which, then it gets people to, and this is the language part of it, is hey, if everybody is, enforcing the language of how we, refer to things, then this stuff becomes worthwhile and less fragile, because then in the CI, the language in the document is also being tested, and that's my big point, is that, but it's an effort, and I don't know if, I know that, when I get involved in these, I force this stuff on people, and some people that actually, if they're document critical, they usually will stick with it. Or either that, or they freeze the code and they don't do anything with, it's stuff like that. But and I don't know. Anyway, I think I'm about done with this, because what I kind of see happening is, well, I should actually show you a spec. Yeah, I should show you the spec stuff too. The spec, here, let's do that a little bit too, because that kind of goes the other direction with the page object stuff, which is another technique. And I usually like to use both techniques, because the page object stuff, usually the stylist people, it's what bothers me about the rack in is, someone has to be super concerned with, the look and feel of all this stuff. And that ain't me. And I don't think that's Greg. I know it's an essential part and everything but someone else that uses it as their primary vehicle to, interact with this stuff has to be, cognizant about what it's doing, because, refresh and even this animation, I thought it originally was that animation was allowing me not to get to those buttons, and it could be that, because back in the Angular days, is if you're doing an animation, I had to wait for that animation to finish before I could, the button would activate to click. I don't think it's the same in React. I didn't see the evidence of that. But it's, calling this system wizard, of course, you've got your language stuff, all those have to be tagged, and it has to relate to something in the documents and something like that that's also going to get the language, translated on. So that's why I think all that stuff is important if the user view portal is important, but it has to, kind of be in their domain, whoever. And that's actually, this is the closest I've found to, to actually executing a document that, that's reasonable to do. So let's see, I'm off on a tirade. So back on track. Let's run a feature spec here. I'll kill that. And I need my control. Okay, so I have a yarn test PO for page objects, and it will just go through the page objects. And I think I only have one page object that that I test, and that's the login page object. And I think this is where it's going through the provision, this website. But this is where I know. Let's see. I don't know if it's Rob and Isaac we're talking about. I probably busted it. Still not signed. So what'd I do? Oh, maybe. And sign input saying it's still not accepted. Okay, so yeah, maybe you guys changed the UI. Hey, that'd be cool for me to. That'd be good if you changed it right now. You're mentioning it. You were changing it. Now it's there. What's it not doing? Huh. Well, let's see. This was running. Let's see. Your racking. Oh, what is that? Rack. Oh, shoot. There it is. Maybe it's because I was. Oh, what the heck? Login portal. Oh, it's busted. Oh, cool. Well, that's a good one. My spec test depended on that, this button working. And let's take this stuff out and see if it's probably React doing something different. See, oh, you did. You guys are changing that, aren't you? Can't. Oh well. Oh, maybe it's because I have an endpoint. Well, this was a good one but yeah, I don't want. Okay, let's go and do it with test. Yeah, you guys are throwing just stuff in cookies, aren't you? Or something. I don't know. Yeah, if you guys are doing all this sort of stuff, then I need to back away from it with a 10-foot pole. Anyway. Let's see if I can. Well, let's just do this. I'll go to the testing guy. Maybe it was because I had him up here before. I don't think so. I think something changed, didn't it? Yeah, I can't get to that user portal anymore. Well, what is this element? Inspect. Oh, well, I think I'm going to I'm going to talk through the code. And then I am going to talk to you about that, because this is, this is where it gets different. If you want to change page and objects and not, and have them in separate buckets, and this is just more shit to do. Let's see. So a page object, if you're not familiar, it's basically, everything's a page and then you inherit. So this is a simple page object. This is the, top class. And truthfully, this probably, I put this function call, it's basically, okay, you can open that, and then you can extend. So if if this rack in page is, you're calling this content, I think. I don't know. Let's see. Let's go around here. Reservation. Yeah, reservation. So that's your, kind of, I don't know what the heck's all happening. But anyway, there's a title there that you're going with. So and those are the associations that I was wanting to get. So you call those a page, but each of those pages has this bar, which is basically, the user thing. And so, so there's semantics around all this stuff. And if and that's where I says, well, it's object inheritance, blah 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 blah. We just might as well keep that up to date with the the text that actually is there. That's what this structure is trying to model, but its main instead of going TCP/IP, which is that's where the main browser is going. You're going into the WebSocket stuff into the browser, which then manipulates the DOM, or makes calls to the DOM, and then that goes out and makes the other calls. So walking through this, let's go through a spec. A PO spec is what that means. That's a page object spec. That's the test. So the test for the page object thing is, I basically, and I'm calling in a bunch of stuff. I'm setting some constants that I'm going to use, and then I go, and this is a little bit more natural for a CSS developer because they're used to JavaScript already, and a lot of times you will be doing things in the page object which relate to visual elements on the page anyway. So and what I had done here is in fact this rack in support login. Let's go, and so that's in the navigate. There's a login page. So and this is where I had to do. I was debating on whether to put the actions to get to the login page in the page call or in the spec, and either works, but I just it's kind of trying to separate the actions to get to a state versus the state itself. And you guys all know this, is that technically the web is supposed to be stateless, but we all know that isn't true. I mean, I shouldn't say. In practice, that is not true because you pick up state as you navigate, and that's what if basically no one would use the internet if they didn't pick up state. Well, anyway, not to get into that argument. The thing I like about this structure and these things is that you can hang those functions off, and this is more like what's actually happening in the DOM, and anyway, the issue I had with this was the same thing. What I ended up having to do is I had to tab through things to get to the select, because I couldn't get the element to select in. And well, I mean, I think that's probably enough about that. That, because that's really the page object stuff is two levels, but it doesn't really, it's still not at a level, like a pure marketing guy could read, whereas the feature file, in theory is at a level that a marketing guy could follow, which there's no good example. This is probably the cleanest example. And this is my little, I just go out and as a developer. So this almost could be put in documentation, except for these element call things, and that's where the CSS style thing comes in, because instead of calling it, you could do something, a rack in element, which basically, truthfully, oh, that looks like a rack in button, oh, that's a rack in symbol. So if I associate, rack in spelled that way with all the different, styles and buttons like that, that's obviously a rack in portal login button, So the language, starts to make sense, and that's actually and that's this mumble jumble I talk about, the CSS DSL versus the API DSL. You still call, even in the ISOs things, you still call it ISOs. You might as well make that consistent across all those levels. Anyway, and I guess I'll stop this one, and because all this stuff is fixable. It's just that I know that you guys are going to, if based on Shane, talking about templates styling, and changing style treatments for a user, and I don't know how serious you are about, that sort of stuff, but for those to work cleanly, all those layers of abstractions and stuff have to be in the CSS, because that, the CSS DOM is, to my knowledge right now, is how even, how the style, how the art guys work is through that style sheet still. And there's new methods for doing that, and I can't even remember what they are, and that gives it a little bit more interactive. But a lot of that stuff, that interactive code, that UI manipulation is kind of baked into the the browser structures, and I think there's still CSS hooked. I forgot what the new stuff is called, but CSS still works fairly well, and I think it works with or you could go with it, but the principle is the same. Well, I'll try to leave it with this point, is that it's what level of abstraction do you want to test to. I'd like to get to the user level abstraction, where you basically associate with just things that are seen on the screen, and then that abstraction can be used with the same techniques as the internationalization code, because that's stuff in the code that the browser will change dynamically based on the stuff in the tags in the browser, language stuff. And if you follow that sort of rules with it allows the testing stuff to hook into the same thing to manipulate it for testing. And so if you're going to keep a browser and internationalize it, it's something you have to do anyway. So, and then why not just hook that same style into the actual words, words in this, actually, like I said, and you could do a little bit of manipulation, or just put these things in exactly as documents too, of how to do things. That anytime you need a user to go through state, that you can describe it in a document this way too. Anyway, but it's work, and I'll quit it here and get this up.